But then when you start feeling that frazzled feeling, a lot of times I would look to that whole idea of like just the cutting back. It's just like cut back until it feels peaceful. But at the same time, I'm like, yes, but then how am I supposed to go forward if I keep cutting back when I'm frazzled? And I realize it's not so much I need to cut things out. I need to be prepared for variability in output.
Welcome to the Simplified Organization podcast, 15-minute conversations with real moms about managing our homes and family life cheerfully to the glory of God. We can actually enjoy housework and love being homemakers when we focus on truth and work with gratitude. I'm Mystie Winckler, homemaker for 22 years, homeschool mom of 5 with 2 graduates, and author of the book Simplified Organization: Learn to Love What Must Be Done. I write and podcast at Simply Convivial, and I run Convivial Circle, a community helping women to excel at homemaking and do life cheerfully. And today I'm joined by one of our Convivial Circle members, Joanna Forrester. Joanna is wife of 13 years to her husband, Scott, mother to 5 young kids, which includes 2 sets of twins. She enjoys exploring the philosophical side of homemaking as well as getting into the nitty-gritty of stewarding a home. So thank you so much for joining me, Joanna.
Glad to be here.
So we just wrapped up a year of simplified organization community coaching inside Convivial Circle that you were participating in this last year. And at the end of that, there's a graduation survey. And the graduation survey isn't checking that you graduate if you do all the things. It's like, are you still here? Are you still engaged? Then no matter how much you have or haven't done, you get the prize packet at the end. But one of the things that you commented on was just how much the lessons on changing your story and your metaphors about your life, how much there's to chew on and think about and apply all year long, because that's the very first set of lessons. And here we are, a whole year later, hopefully ready to start again. But, noticing how we talk about our life and our home and our kids to ourselves in our own head is huge. So I'd just love to hear your experience with those lessons and what you noticed in your stories and metaphors.
Well, I was, I guess, just blown away when I first started doing the course at how much how mechanistic my view of myself as a person, my role. I had never really thought about it that way, but then whenever you started talking about what metaphors are you using? Are you comparing yourself to a machine? Are you comparing yourself to a living thing? Like burnout is for car engines, but you're not an engine. And it was just very impactful to me. And like I said, it's at the very beginning of the course you start. I think it's like one of the very first lessons that you do. And I've still been thinking about it to this day. And I think the biggest thing that it changed for me was how I relate to my day, whether I view that day as productive or not. That switching of, even though I would consider myself a productive person, I really want to get stuff done. I usually get my top 3 things done during the day. Switching from focusing on just accomplishment to the fruitfulness, the efficiency, productivity side to the fruitfulness side, and just the different picture that brings has been very helpful for me personally. I think the other element in the declutter your story was the part where you say stop lying to yourself, and that one hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh my goodness, I lie to myself all the time, and then I turn around and I lie to my husband. He'll ask me, how was your day? And I didn't get anything done. It's like, that is a lie. If you got up, got dressed, fed the children, did you got to the end of the day in one piece, you did something. But if you keep saying, I didn't get anything done, you have just completely colored and changed your perception of that day. And it's a bad attitude. Like, it totally discounts all of the things that you did do. And it just I think it once I realized that, and I realized that I was subtly lying to myself, then using that as a way of talking to my husband about that, and then thinking about how do I use that same type of mentality when I'm talking to my kids. What are they learning about, like how we should be spending our time, how we should be using our time? Those were two things that just really changed, I think, me for the better. And I think it has been something like it's very slow. The realization was very quick, but the application of it has been slow throughout the year. But I definitely can see a change in how I interact with those people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can learn something and then have the knowledge, but then it takes time to notice when it's happening. Like you have to
Yeah.
change that thought pattern. You have to then use that awareness and new knowledge to diagnose and change. So that does take a lot of
Yeah.
time.
I think the other thing that going along with the difference in like fruitfulness versus like, are you a machine or are you a living organism, was being okay with the idea of you're not having to operate, and still you can't stop talk about it without sounding mechanistic, at the same speed all the time.
Right.
The being cognizant of the fact that there is going to be a like more than just seasonality, because I think seasonality makes sense when you're dealing with, we everybody's had like a little baby and you think like, oh, the first month or two it's a different time versus like when they're a toddler and things like that. But even breaking that down to the seasonality of a day, a Monday is going to have a different vibe than a Tuesday versus a Saturday. And then you like different weeks have different speeds. And so being cognizant of, I need to not think that I need to operate at a 10 every single day. You need to be able to have that fluctuate and that be a good thing, building the fluctuations into life instead of fighting against it. Because I think that was something that I didn't really know how to look at, because I always enjoyed like I said, high productivity, getting things done. But then when you start feeling that frazzled feeling, a lot of times I would look to that whole idea of like just the cutting back. It's just like cut back until it feels peaceful. But at the same time, I'm like, yes, but then how am I supposed to go forward if I keep cutting back when I'm frazzled? And I realize it's not so much I need to cut things out. I need to be prepared for variability in output. And that's a
Mhm.
good thing. And so being, like I said, just cognizant of that and planning for that instead of being frustrated when output feels low. It's like, no, that's the time that you're supposed to be in. You're supposed to be in a little bit of a downtime.
Well, especially when our job is raising and discipling people, little people. It's not just a factory, churning out widgets. When we're dealing with people, yeah, the variability is real.
No. Oh, the other thing that came to my mind whenever going along the ideas of being prepared for variability and not expecting a maximum. I think one of the things that changed after I started thinking about how to better use my time for that variability shifts is I actually shifted when I would rest. I think I had fall another thing that maybe in the declutter your story, or maybe it may have been in one of the other sections that I realized was that I was using rest as a reward for getting things done.
Mm,
Instead of like, if you only got to take a break if you accomplished all of the different things. And so until I did that, I couldn't take a break. And it wasn't like a crazy thing. Like I definitely wouldn't say that I was like on the verge of like burnout or anything, but it's definitely not the right way of thinking about rest, because again, if you're going back to the living organism thing, that's just something you need because you're a person. You need to take a break. You need to get outside, look at the sunshine, feel the grass, sit down and read a book. And you should do those things not just because you got everything done. You should do those things because you're a human being and you have a life that God gave you to enjoy. And so practically one of the things that I switched, and this was a very big thing for me, was we've always had a afternoon quiet time. And I would oftentimes use that time to get a lot of work done. I would like front load. And then if I finished up all the work, then I would sit down and do my reading and things like that. And I don't remember exactly after which section it was, but I told myself very specifically, you're going to sit down and read for 20 minutes before you go and do anything else. And I was very scared in the moment. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna run out of time. I'm not gonna be able to get all the things I need done before, the horde is released from their rooms or whatever. And I like, no, you're gonna do it. So I sat down, I read my book for 20 minutes, and then amazingly, I got everything done and that I had set out to do that during that quiet time. And I was better able to handle the sprint from like getting dinner together to bedtime. And I was like, and I know that is because I had intentionally rested and then worked. And so then I was able to be better prepared going into that little sprint time. And so that has also been, I'm not exactly sure where along the process that idea shifted for me, but definitely prioritizing rest first and not using it as a carrot as to get through the work. And I think that's something that I know it's something that I struggled with coming out of college, whenever you have all your rest breaks like designed for you, like get to Thanksgiving break, get to Christmas break, working, even you can like schedule vacations and stuff like that. But then whenever you're a stay-at-home mom, it's like unless you choose to take a break, there's a never ending to-do list. There's something that always has to be done. So you have to have a bigger idea of what you're supposed to be doing than just completing tasks if you're going to work stuff like that in.
Oh, that's true. That's a good way of putting it.
I have to say though, I have been completely satisfied with the course and I had really no clue what it was going to be whenever I signed up for it because I think I was a little scared by the coaching aspect of it. I was like, what are they going to tell me to do? Because I didn't really know how much, like, how the coaching worked out. But the community and the discussing of the courses has been such a help. And it's been really great to see other women how they apply the same concepts and principles, but everybody applies them very differently. And I think that just shows again, points to the fact that like universal principles, they're going to apply to everybody, but they're not going to apply in exactly the same way. And like thinking through those things really makes us better homemakers because then it's better than just getting like, do these 5 things and you'll be able to like maintain a tidy house.
Yeah. And really, that's kind of the mechanistic idea of ourselves and life is like, if everyone just did this exact same checklist, we'd all have the same output, the same results. And it's like, well, that's just not true. And seeing how other people apply it, like it isn't coaching like we usually think about it, where like someone else is standing off to the side telling you exactly what to do. But when we hear what other women are doing and how they're processing and applying, it helps like broaden our perspective and get more ideas, even if we're not doing exactly what they're doing, but it helps us break out of those just ruts that we get into.
It's very inspiring. I have found it just incredibly inspiring seeing women from completely different walks of life, different ages and stages, and going through like really hard things and that feeling of camaraderie you get. It's like, yes, we're going to work through this together. They're doing their work, I'm doing my work, but we're all pushing towards a common goal and a goal of, being excellent at the vocations that we find ourselves in. I just have found that very inspiring. And sadly, it's not something that you necessarily come across a ton. Definitely not on the internet and other places, but even in real life, it's hard to find people who have a bigger vision, I guess, is like what they're trying to strive for. So hopefully, even through doing this, that will hopefully sprinkle into other areas of my life and more in real life places.
This spread it out. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Joanna. It's been a great conversation that I think would be helpful for a lot of women.
Thank you so much.
Joanna mentioned the first module from Organize Your Attitude as the one that gave her the most to think about on decluttering her stories. And I actually have that module available as a free download. So if you want to declutter your story and stop lying to yourself about your life, then go to simplyconvivial.com/story. That's simplyconvivial.com/story to download a PDF of that module for free. It will help you to repent, rejoice, repeat.